Today, I'll be responding to a question from a longtime listener. By the way, thank you for being a longtime listener. I'm going to be responding to her comment, but also some stuff she didn't necessarily say, but is typically said by people on the left. This was the comment. We know there is racism everywhere in society, but who do you think is more likely to scream white genocide and great replacement theory because they have an issue with blacks and other minorities immigrating over to countries with whites as the majority? White cultural conservatives or a random white person in the general population? There are a large segment of non-whites and whites online who believe blacks cannot maintain a civilization or are naturally intelligent, regardless of political affiliation. But there is a reason the white nationalists are more likely to join Republicans than the Democrat Party. Okay, so you seem to be saying the fact that more racists seem to flock to the Republican Party, that is proof that the Republican Party is racist. I would have to disagree and say that what you've actually proven is you've uncovered one of the many flaws in our two-party system. And that flaw is, since there's only two choices, you have to pick either one or the other. So that means a lot of times we aren't even voting for what we want. We're just voting for the lesser of two evils. Nobody's excited about Biden. They're just voting against Trump. Now, if we had like 10 political parties and all the racists were flocking to one party, then you might have a point. But we only have two choices. So of course, one party is going to be more appealing to certain groups of people than others. The only way that wouldn't be the case is if the parties were exactly the same, and that would defeat the whole purpose. Our current system is like somebody holding up a menu from KFC and Pizza Hut and telling us to choose. Very few people like everything on the menu. And a lot of people would have things that they'd want to add, but you can't do that because the menu is already printed. So they have to sort through and find something they like. Vegetarians obviously aren't going to want to vote for KFC because their whole menu revolves around meat. Pizza Hut also serves meat, but you can get a pizza without any meat on it. So they'll probably end up over there. But where do the vegans go? Probably Pizza Hut, because some of them do have a salad bar. But still, the Pizza Hut party is nowhere near their beliefs. It's just the closest thing to it. So, since so many vegans would be flocking to the Pizza Hut party, you would call that the vegan party. But it's not. It's just the lesser of two evils for vegans. It's the same thing with the Republican Party being the racist party. But you know what the biggest flaw in this whole thing is? Pizza Hut and KFC are owned by the same company.
Let that sink in.
In this system, we do not vote for what we want. We are given two choices and told to pick one. That is not the same thing. Here's what you need to know. The racism in both parties is equal. Yes, igual. And if that statement is shocking to you or you don't believe it, that's because people on the left don't recognize all racism. You only recognize politically incorrect racism. Politically correct racism is okay. Also, you don't recognize racism between non-white races, meaning one group of non-white people being racist against another group of non-white people. And I showed examples of that in my Rob Smith video. Alright, so the left doesn't recognize racism between non-white races, but they also mostly don't recognize non-white people being racist against white people. For the left, racism is something white people do to non-white people. And if there was no white people, there'd be no more racism.
Now, you guys referenced an MSNBC host that called all of these African-American leaders that were at the RNC minstrels. That host's name was Tiffany Cross, and her with her colleague, Dr. Jason Johnson, called all of these African-American policymakers, people like Senator Tim Scott, people like Georgia State Democratic Rep. Vernon Jones, people like Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron. They called these people minstrels. They should be ashamed of themselves. Their behavior is despicable, and that sort of racist hatred that is coming from the left tells me that they have turned into exactly who they hate.
That was our friend Rob Smith talking about some intra-racial racism. This particular type of racism is very prevalent on the left. If you're black or a minority, you're supposed to believe a certain way. And if you don't believe that certain way, there's no possible way you could have come up with these thoughts on your own, so you're brainwashed. Either that or you're trying to get in good with white people, so you're an Uncle Tom. If you don't agree with a conservative black person, that's one thing. And it's even understandable if you want to call them stupid for doing what you believe is voting against their own interest. That I can understand. But y'all don't give the generic insults like stupid. You give those racial ones like menstrual, Uncle Tom, coon. Y'all know exactly what you're doing when you use those terms, and that's why it's racism.
So if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
And how's about this?
Where you're at.
What exactly are white people superior at?
Smelling funky, letting their egos control their every move.
Privilege. Making bland food.
Playing the victim.
Congratulating themselves over shit that they're incompetent at or that should have already been done.
They're superior at being dicks. Fuck whiteness. Fuck white people. Fuck assimilating.
For the record, I don't share the sentiments that these people expressed in that video, but what they said is covered by the First Amendment, and I would not want to silence them. That being said, what they said is racist. A lot of people on the left would excuse what they said, even making the argument that they're not actually being racist.
What I am saying is that a lot of people think that prejudice and racism are the same thing. Prejudice is an aspect of racism. However, the difference is racism is prejudice plus power. And by power, I mean on an individual and institutional level. We do not live in a society where every racial group has equal power.
I don't care what excuse anybody gives for what those black people said, most people on the right would consider that to be racist. If you don't think what they said was racist, that's on you. But this is exactly why people on the left think there's more racism on the right, because the left does not acknowledge all racism. Or you condone it with excuses. Here's another one.
So the mayor in the city of Boston is in some hot water after emailing the entire city council an invitation to a holiday party that was intended for, quote unquote, electeds of color.
Boston Mayor Michelle Wu having an electeds of color party. She initially sent out an email inviting everybody, but that was a mistake. So then she sent out a second email uninviting just the white people. In other words, she wanted to have a party that her own husband couldn't attend. For the record, people have a right to have a party and invite or not invite anybody they want. If a minority group wants to have a party with only themselves there, they have a right to do that. That being said, you need to do that on your own time and not do your invitations over official government email. That makes it seem like it's coming from the government and thus the government endorses it. The government is not supposed to discriminate based on race.
And I think there is something about this segregated, that separate but equal Christmas parties that is just inappropriate for any place, but specifically a government. A government legally cannot do that.
Okay, so she fired off the email.
That being said, there's no victim here. Even if the white people ended up not going to the party, they're not victims. But that also goes for the reverse. If the white electeds of no color decided to have a party, excluding everybody else, there would be no victims. This is a goddamn party. So you're a 30, 40, 50, I don't know how old you are, year old black person, and you get excluded from a white party, all of a sudden you're going to start having flashbacks of slavery? It's not like you're being denied admission to a college or denied for a job. It's not like it's something that matters. So why can people of color do this but not white people when there would be no victim either way? And there is no benefit to anybody. But there's a detriment. It's stirring up racial tension. If somebody can defend this, I'd love to hear it. A lot of times, people don't even have a problem with the rule. It's that the rule is applied unequally. It's selectively enforced.
So a Supreme Court case yesterday ruled that a baker in Colorado did not have to provide a cake for a gay wedding because of his religious beliefs and preferences. Do you agree or disagree with that ruling?
I think he should have to bake the cake because it's his job.
The fact that our Supreme Court found that this was an okay thing, I find appalling.
But if his job is to bake a cake for a wedding, even if he doesn't agree with it, he should still have to bake a cake for that wedding.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he should have to. He should have to bake the cake because it's his job. Like, he's a baker.
I think that he should definitely make the cake for them.
If there were an African-American baker and someone came in and asked them to make a cake for a KKK rally, should they be forced to do it?
I'm gonna say no.
But they're a baker, it's their job, right?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, like, they shouldn't, but, like, I guess that kind of just, like, contradicts what I just said. But, yeah.
I'm not sure on that subject.
What would be the difference?
No, because the KKK is directly hating them as a person. Meanwhile, gay people aren't hating the baker for being a baker.
Mixing it up, how about should a Jewish baker have to make a cake for a Palestinian wedding?
It gets more complicated like that, I guess, but I'm unsure, I would say. Okay. I don't know.
Here's another thing you may or may not have realized. Back during the pandemic, there was this hashtag going around that said, "Stop Asian Hate." And this was in response to Asian people getting punched on the street for no apparent reason. But there was a reason, if you want to call it that, and that was because of where the coronavirus originated.
China.
Unfortunately, because all Asian people, wait, you're not supposed to say that. It was not just affecting Chinese people. Koreans, Japanese, Thai, anybody with the eyes was getting punched. I had to tell my dude to walk a few paces ahead of me so I didn't get tied up in all of that. I got enough going on being a black female. Anyway, the point is, most of the people who were perpetrating those attacks were black. The media did their best to obscure the race of the perpetrators.
While I was walking down the street from my high school to Walgreens, I was walking with 3 of my friends from both China and Taiwan, crossing the crosswalk. There is a car just rushed through us, driven by an African American, shouting that go back to your home, go back from where you are from. We're not hurt, it's just shocked.
Moving right along, you asked which party is most likely to have people talking about the Great Replacement theory. I would say that is the Republican Party. One of the things the Republican Party is running on is secure borders. So people who are concerned about replacement theory, that particular talking point would be appealing to them. But that doesn't mean that wanting secure borders is racist. But here's the thing. The theory that you talked about is not just about white people. The media are telling non-whites that this is all about white people, and that's how they're getting minorities to go along with it. They'll say things like, whites will no longer be the majority by 2045, and some black people are like, yay, can't wait. But they don't realize that if white people get moved down the ladder, we are going to be moved even farther down the ladder. We will be an even smaller minority. Let me settle something right now. This is not just about white people.
And so after the 60s, when you couldn't defeat us with the vote, we defeated you. You couldn't defeat us with a lot of the legalisms that came into labor laws that said you had to give us employment. So the way you defeated us said, we're going to bring another employable population in the country that's not going to ask for those labor laws.
The media says the teams are white people and people of color. Those are not the teams. We don't even speak the same language as most of the people coming here. We don't have the same priorities or needs. So how are those the teams? The people who can communicate with each other, as in speak the same language, those are the teams. The people who have similar needs, those are the teams. And for the record, I am not against migrants. I do not hate them. I'm nice to everybody who's nice to me. I'm against the government using them for political gain. So the comment says, there are a large segment of non-whites and whites online who believe blacks cannot maintain a civilization. I don't even understand how that's up for debate. I mean, if people, for example, were saying that black people don't graduate from high school, then us being black people, all we'd have to do is say, here's my high school diploma, now what? So, likewise, with the civilization thing, all you'd have to do is show the evidence, and then the discussion is over. So don't let those trolls keep you up at night. This is very easily proven.